Thank you very much, Kathy. My real claim to fame in urban forestry, though, is that I am the brother of Greg McPherson, whom I imagine many of you know. Greg is a dedicated, knowledgeable urban forest person and also a really nice person. He is, in fact, you may know he's retired now from the Forest Service, but he is doing all of the quantification work for our project here, so he's very much involved in that. So I mentioned Greg being dedicated, knowledgeable, and nice because in the last 2-3 years, I've met a lot of urban forest people around the country. And it is amazing to me how those words capture the urban forest people, which is dedicated, knowledgeable, and really nice. And when you put that together with the fact that they are managing an incredibly precious public resource, which has almost no funding, you kind of go, what's wrong with this picture? We've got really great people. We've got a crucial public resource, and there just is so little funding for it. So our organization is very much a targeted effort to take one approach to opening that new funding, and that's really through the generation of carbon credits. So today, I'm kind of the opening act, the warm-up band for Anna and Collin, because they're like you, they are on the ground actually implementing projects. So they have some real-world experience with this. What I want to do is give you an overview. So I'm going to give a few slides on the problem, a few slides on the opportunity, and then some kind of overview information on how we have laid the foundation here to try to make it possible to seize that opportunity. So here's the problem, and you know, you all know this. The canopy's in decline. You probably know that Dave Nowak updated his research, and there's significant decline all over the country. There's also rapid urbanization of the population. Almost 80% is now in cities, and there's development everywhere, much of it in larger metropolitan areas. One thing you may not know is that we are adding a tremendous amount of urban land area, and the projection is land area that's going to be the size of Montana by 2050. So the question is that going to be roads and rooftops, or can we have healthy, green, equitable cities? This is just a shot of my home city, which, as you may know, is the Emerald City, but if you look at a satellite photo, you can see the green is already pushed out. And there's been a joke in Washington State for some time, what's the biggest clear cut in the state of Washington? It's now the city of Seattle. This is a slide of a table from the Dave Nowak article where he has documented the loss in urban community tree cover. And I have 2 slides here, and we obviously don't have time to go through this, but I just thought I'd put this up for you all so you can go back to it and refer to it if you want. I mean, the loss is substantial. If you look, just to take an example, at Massachusetts, on the far right-hand column, you see they lost 4,930 acres. That's per year during that study period of 2008 to 2014. So that comes by my math, and my brother Greg is the scientist, not me, but that comes to something like 48 square miles. So Massachusetts lost urban and community tree cover that's almost the size of the entire city of Boston. And again, here's just the remaining of the state. So you're welcome to go back and look at this. And this is in Dave's article too. So the problem is a lot of it is just math. I mean, everyone loves trees, elected officials, agency officials, everyone loves trees. But there is a saying, an urban tree is worth more dead than alive. And the reason that saying has some bite to it is that the development value of land underneath an urban tree is extraordinarily valuable. And that development value is almost always worth more than any penalty or fine that a city can impose for removal of the tree. And then just as an accounting issue, again, everyone loves the trees, but when the city budget managers get to the end of the year and they have their pencils out, the trees are an expense. Their liability and their maintenance. And we have not reached a point, sort of in terms of our financial accounting, where we can put trees on the balance sheet as an asset. So all the budget managers see is an expense. And when they're struggling with homelessness, human and utility services, transportation, affordable housing, the trees just generally fall to the bottom. And it's a shame because trees deliver all these benefits, and I'm definitely speaking to the choir with you all. But it's bird and wildlife, pollinator habitat, it's rainfall interception and stormwater reductions, it's slope stability, it's human health and happiness. It's all these things. And our urban forests are where the people are. So people literally live in the midst of this forest. And the trees can deliver what is known as the triple bottom line of sustainability: environmental benefits, social benefits, and economic benefits. So here's the opportunity. Because there's plenty of money being spent on causes that are like urban forestry. $700 million over the last decade on carbon purchases. Watershed investments, over $600 million in 2016 alone. Sustainability, and CSR is the acronym for corporate social responsibility. That spending exceeded $15 billion. And of course, what we see is almost none of that is now going towards saving and restoring our city forests. Part of the reason for that is there's been no really easy certified way to do that. So we put together a group that's really of, by, and for urban forestry. It's a nonprofit organization. Our board has people that you will recognize: Ian Leahy, Pete Smith from Arbor Day, Rachel Holmes from TNC. And we put together a national group that could help us draft carbon protocols. So a protocol in the carbon world is really the rule book. And it's the rule book that projects have to follow in order to meet eligibility needs or requirements and quantification requirements. And generally, a national protocol drafting group drawn from all sectors of a particular field in all regions is part of what imparts credibility to that protocol. So again, you'll recognize some of these people. We really tried to put together people who sometimes don't always talk to each other. Jenny McGarvey, for example, is a watersheds person from the Chesapeake Bay Alliance. Transportation people, nonprofit people. Misha Sarkovich from SMUD, very progressive utility. So that's a national protocol drafting group that help us put together the protocols that could essentially be the rule books for how projects can earn carbon credits. And then what we tried to do is create a product. And I don't mean to be vulgar or crass and talk about it in terms of business because, again, we're a nonprofit organization. But what we want to do is make it easy for companies to invest in urban forests. This is like a Bitcoin or tree coin. I wish we could have a catchier name for it. But what we did do with the scientists was to try to embody in this credit some of the values that urban trees bring. Because as you all know, carbon is only one of the many, many benefits. And early on, we huddled with the scientists and said, can we build into a credit some of these other values? And their answer was, well, yes, we think we can. So what the scientists developed is really what we call a carbon plus credit. Every carbon credit the world over has to have a metric ton of CO2. That's what a carbon credit is. It really represents either an emission reduction or the pulling out of the atmosphere of a metric ton of CO2. And the scientists were able to quantify rainfall interception, air quality, and energy savings. I say cooling, but it also can be heating effect. And that's all bundled together in one unique and innovative carbon plus credit. And the point of this is a national credit. These aren't protocols that were done by one program or one region or one city. It's a national protocol that creates a national standard. We also, in the course of the work of developing the protocols, and again, talking to many urban forest people, realized that, yes, planning is fine, but in many rapidly growing cities, we are losing urban forest. So we created both a planting protocol and a preservation protocol. So the goal here is that we are, in effect, the app. We're the missing link that will connect what we believe to be a large pool of very willing funders with urban forestry. And as I said, the benefits are way beyond carbon. These are locally sourced benefits. And one thing that the carbon world has by and large left out is that it's tried to create a credit that is traded on a registry or an exchange that's almost mimics like a financial market. So it doesn't matter where the credit is, it's a credit, it's good the world over. I'm going to go on a faceless exchange and buy a credit. And that's great, and that work has been responsible for storing millions of tons of carbon. That's great. But the part that's left out of that equation is a place-based credit. And that's what urban forestry has to offer, because our trees are where the people are, and they're in the middle of cities where companies, corporations, organizations want to have a presence. And we'll talk a little bit about Austin as we get to another slide. Austin is a very interesting example because the city of Austin is actually buying carbon credits. And they, of course, are willing to buy credits from a landfill or an industrial gas plant 1,000 miles away, but this is taxpayer dollars. They really want locally sourced credits because they want those dollars to deliver environmental benefits locally and to stay local. And, of course, there's favorable media coverage for everyone in this. And it truly embodies that principle of thinking globally and acting locally. So here is just a quick spreadsheet. One of our early adopter projects is Pittsburgh. Now this is a preservation project. It is 300 acres of forest that would be preserved. And that 300 acres, if it's preserved, will store about 100,000 tons of CO2. And if that is sold per ton, at $10 a ton, which is a high price, but definitely not an unreasonable price. And by high, I mean high in terms of going on one of the big registries and buying a very cheap carbon credit. That 100,000 tons is going to generate $1 million of carbon revenue. This is a large parcel, so that would get paid out over 10 years, but it would be about $100,000 a year for 10 years. So we're talking about a substantial amount of money. And I mentioned the carbon plus credit that bundles in these other values. So the table shows those co-benefits. So if you look at ecosystem services in the left-hand column, you'll see the rain interception, CO2 avoided, air quality, energy savings. And then in the column to the immediate right of the ecosystem service column, those are resource unit totals. So you'll see that on this 300-acre parcel, the rain interception is 143 million liters a year. This is the per year benefits of preserving that urban forest. You see the air quality benefits, you see the energy benefits too. Greg and the scientists assigned a dollar value to that based on a reference city in each climate zone. This is essentially the dollar value of those co-benefits. So the thing, again, that we all know, but we haven't always had tools to put this into resource units and numbers and to bundle that into one credit, is how incredibly valuable the co-benefits are. Now, is a buyer going to pay these co-benefit dollars, $644,000 per year? No. They're not going to pay for that. If it's carbon bio, they will want the carbon. But these co-benefits add a whole additional basis for making these credits incredibly valuable and for being able to charge a higher price. So we decided pretty early on that we did not really want to publicize this broadly. We didn't want to have some gigantic marketing campaign. We really wanted to focus on some so-called early adopter projects with people who understood that this is new. We are trying to translate between two worlds that haven't talked to each other before now, which is kind of the whole carbon world with its own ways of doing things, and the urban forest world. And we know that's going to take time and effort. So we have projects. I'm just going to talk about a couple of them here. I'll let Ann and Collin talk about Austin. King County is a very interesting one because they have a land conservation initiative where they are trying to preserve the last remaining open space in the King County area, which is, as you all know, rapidly urbanizing. And so they want to preserve several thousands of acres of urban forest. They don't have enough money to realize their own ambitious goals, so they are very much interested in using our preservation protocol to earn credits to add revenue to that effort. San Francisco, their focus has been on buyer recruitment. They're a city that's very lucky in that they have a lot of wealthy corporate citizens. So they have, just to take two examples, Uber and Lyft both have corporate headquarters there, and they have 20,000 drivers in the city of San Francisco. So they are right now talking to Lyft, who recently announced that it wanted to go carbon neutral, about funding one of the first projects in San Francisco. Shoreline is a city just north of Seattle. That's a really interesting project. It's 3 acres that is now inaccessible, covered with blackberries, Japanese knotweed, and it's right next to a subsidized public housing facility. So Bank of America is going to fund a project to essentially clear the invasives and plant 2,000 trees essentially on those 3 acres to really rapidly generate some canopy. So there are many ways we could talk about this. That last bullet has data center cities. We are now talking to Microsoft that has data center cities all over the world. They're very interested in a project in Des Moines, so we are just in process with that with Trees Forever. But these are the kind of opportunities that we want to see for this particular work, is to create a program, not just a one-off project, but actually a program. So the demand, who are the buyers and funders? So here's what we've learned in the course of doing this. Companies really, really like the quantified reportable values. And we're going to have new kinds of buyers here. The Microsoft people we're talking to, it's very interesting. They have connected with King County through their carbon buying department, but they have me talking with Trees Forever and their data center sustainability people about the program in Des Moines. The data center sustainability are really focused on water and energy savings, and they really, really want the quantified values. They also, interestingly, want to add both employee engagement and a workforce training element, which is wonderful, and again, brings those triple bottom line benefits into play. Early adopter buyers, Bank of America, they're not buying to offset their carbon emissions. That's a corporate social responsibility investment. Coca-Cola in Miami, that's, again, not a carbon purchase. They purchase water sustainability credits. So in terms of the large national carbon buyers, you know, urban forestry is kind of the last to the carbon credit markets. But in our view, these should be the first credits purchased. And because our credits are expensive, we're never going to get a large carbon buyer to put all their money into urban forestry. But if they put 3% of their carbon budgets into urban, that would all be new money for urban forestry. So I think the lesson that we've learned in this, and the opportunity that makes this partly exciting, is that these aren't just carbon buyers that are interested in these credits. These are companies that want a local presence, and they want the quantified values that are beyond the carbon. So here's just a quick graphic that kind of describes this. If you start at the top, we are the registry. And the carbon project, that would be you all who are in cities and towns all over America. If you follow the arrow that goes to the left and upwards from the carbon project, you see it follows the registry's protocol. So if you have a planting project, for example, you have to follow the requirements in our protocol. Then the registry issues credits to the project. Then you move to the downward right arrow. You sell the credits to the buyers. the money goes back to you. Again, we're a nonprofit organization. We charge a small fee for that, but we are dedicated to having as much of that revenue flow back directly to you. The money doesn't come through us, it comes directly to you. And as I said, we have 2 protocols. The protocols are unfortunately complicated and lengthy. We have on the website created summaries of the protocol. If you're interested, I would recommend you read the summaries, not the protocols, because the protocols had to be written with the carbon people in mind, so there's certain requirements we had to meet on that. But the very gist of it on this slide is, yes, the projects all have to be in metro areas. We use the Census Bureau maps and city and town boundaries, so it's really larger metropolitan areas. The planning project, you have to commit to a 25-year project duration, and our scientists develop spreadsheets. So essentially, you can enter your planning data, and then you have to do sampling of a few trees at 2 intervals in the project, and the spreadsheet will calculate the CO2 and the co-benefits. Preservation is a little bit different. These are forested parcels. The trees have to not currently be protected, and some kind of protection has to be added as part of the protocol. An interesting issue that has come up is parklands, because we had a lot of parks people say, well, we are losing parklands to all manner of things, parking lots, picnic shelters, playfields. And in many cases, the parkland itself has a zoning designation that doesn't allow the park to be developed, but the trees are not specifically protected. So we intend in this preservation protocol for parkland trees to be specifically protected and also earn those credits. So here's a quick infographic, and again, it's too complicated to go into right now, and I really want to leave time for Collin and Anna. But this just really shows the triple bottom line benefits of what we're doing, and on the right hand, the large yellow block is all the many beneficiaries. So that's the general overview. Many of you have seen what's going to follow. I'm going to buzz through these really quickly. This is just to remember that it's not just perspiration. Let's have a little inspiration too. All right, Kathy, thank you very much. That's all I have.